Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Context Podcast. I almost totally flubbed that one. Today we've got a few things that we want to cover, I think. I think there was this post by Addy Osmani that I think is really relevant to the conversation today about, how AI is getting adopted and whether the psychosis is over. I think that's an important question. Also, we did have the webinar from Claris yesterday on sort of an early sneak peek on where they think agentic development is going in FileMaker. We should touch base on that because it applies to things.
It was also, you should say, that it was done by podcast, the Contest podcast host.
Yes.
Who used to be our very own Martha Zink, who now is at Claris. So I have to definitely.
Martha Zink. Doing that webinar, which was really quite exciting and well received, but we'll get into that a little bit.
Yeah.
I think we have some thoughts around agents and maybe kind of reacting to some of the conversations that are happening around us, whether they're real, whether they'll ever see the light of day beyond coding. Who knows? That's Anything else, Todd, that we want to get into?
I don't think so. Let's just get into it. Let's see where to start. I think maybe one thing I think it's maybe to set the stage, like in the Claris world, we're just really getting going on being able to work with agents with FileMaker apps. And so that's a very new thing with stuff like ProofKit and other things that we've been doing and with Claris's announcement. And so it's still fresh and brand new and very new stuff that we can do. The rest of the world has had a good 6 months now to really grind on tokens. And you hear things like token maxing and productivity maxing and AI psychosis and all these things that have kind of been through the zeitgeist, if you will. And we're starting to get some early returns on, what's happening with that. And I think we're still talking about this latest wave is really still less than 6 months old. So this is all very, very new. But we definitely are seeing, early hype cycles. I won't necessarily say peter out, but there's been sort of a reconnection with reality in at least some areas. And I think it's clear that the impacts of AI will move through different industries at different paces, which I suppose is no surprise, right? Because that's always the way technology rolls out, right? Industries have different level of preparedness or susceptibility to a new technology wave, and so different industries will adopt faster than other industries. So I think kind of in the Claris world, it's very new. Outside the Claris world, we've had 6 months, and some of the early results are in. And people are generating, I think, some interesting ideas and thoughts around how humans fit in to the whole story, and what might be the broader use case for agents outside of, say, coding. So, for example, I think that's where we are. We're seeing things like the Uber COO reported that. They weren't exactly clear that the token maxing they were doing, which is this phase that companies were doing just a couple months ago, of basically getting their employees to spend as many tokens as they possibly could. They weren't exactly clear that they were producing any productivity gains or any real value for all the money that they were spending. I think part of this is because it's hard to measure, right? And that's part of the reason why it's difficult to know. And also part of this, I think token maxing is dumb. Like that's like, having leaderboards where people were like, basically judged on how many tokens they were burning is just not a very good idea. That some places were promoting.
To be clear, that idea has never made sense to me. I mean, early, like a few months ago, we kept hearing, if you are not just, if your senior engineer is not like burning 3 times their salaries in tokens, then they're kind of worthless. Okay, how does that work? right? So your cost, your operational OpEx goes up 3x. Well, not 3x, 4x or whatever it is now.
4x, yeah.
And your revenue does what? So,
Yeah.
I mean, like, unless you're burning free money from somebody, you know, like, how are you ever going to sustain that path when, you know, productivity is one thing, but productivity is basically constrained by your cost budget. And so if that productivity doesn't translate to actual new revenue, where are you going to go with all that quote unquote productivity? You know, that never made sense to me. I mean, I think
the it's just, you know, it's part of it is that it's really hard to connect the dollar spent to the outcome right now. Like the tooling doesn't exist for that, right? Like it's a big challenge. We've talked about like how do we track the tokens we're spending on particular services project. It's really quite hard. That tooling just doesn't really exist. So that'll come along and make some of these things a little bit easier to test. But I think one thing that's clear is that just because you can generate 3, 5, 10 times more code doesn't mean you have 3, 5, or 10 times more good ideas, right? That are worth doing.
That is absolutely true. You know, maybe let me sort of ground this in a world that may be closer to where we live, right? And sort of the business and enterprise world, and especially in agency and sort of the consulting business. So we've had this anxiety for a while, I think, even at Proof, where, you know, it's clear that productivity has gone up, quality has gone up. You can quibble whether it's not just faster, it's also better, or wherever that you know the benchmark lies in terms of what agentic coding is doing for us. But I can say in very simple terms that things that used to take us a week to do as a senior developer or engineer, we could probably execute that work to that same level of quality in you know, in a fraction of that time. You know, call it maybe 25%, 50%. I don't know, but it's at least 2x. You know, for equivalent output. The tooling's better. The agents can just do it. Like, you know, like take a simple example, like building a custom Kanban board. The artisanal way takes 5 days. Today, probably 3 hours tops, end-to-end testing and all of that. Right. Yeah. Simple use case. So there's no question that it's faster and probably better if you can vet the code and make sure everything's good. The problem is what happens when all of that stuff gets done at the same velocity and the same level of quality. Your backlog hasn't increased by 4x to compensate.
That's right.
You know, so what do? You know, and so, you know, and I think so. That's one trajectory, right? That's one problem. That you can do it faster, but it's not clear that you have enough customer-driven demand to make up for, you know, the work that you've just done faster.
Yeah, you may just not have anything else that needs to get done, right? And I think that's definitely one thing. I do, however, think that it's also we're bottlenecked by creativity in a lot of ways. You know what I mean? Like it still takes a human to put attention on things to get things done well, right?
Well, I think this is really important. And my analogy there earlier was that it's possible that things are getting faster, things are getting better with AI coding, but it doesn't translate directly to revenue because there are other bottlenecks in place that affect your pipeline, affect your business, affect decisions that you make in terms of what to build and how to build it, right? All those things are still constraints. Like you can build something, a feature faster. So what? Does it get adopted? The customers like it? Is it the right thing? I mean, all those things require meetings, require time, require analysis, require buy-in, require socialization, and those things haven't gotten faster. In fact, they may have
No,
gone slower.
they can't because that's all a very human thing.
It's
And I
all very
think part of the challenge is like, um, this was actually a quote or a paraphrase of a quote by the the Dax, who's one of the open code founders. You can find him on Twitter. And one of the things that he said was, we've shipped a lot of things that we shouldn't have shipped.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of stuff in here that doesn't make sense. Like it's so easy to add a feature to something now. And that used to, when you had a feature and you worked hard to get a feature over the line and ready to go to production, you shipped it because it had already passed through a whole bunch of vetting, and it also took a lot of effort, and you needed to get something back for that effort. So you shipped it. And that might have made sense, a few years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, but it just doesn't anymore because you can make a feature very, very quickly. And so the much harder problem of figuring out, like, does this feature fit with the rest of the features in the product? Does it make the product better or worse? It is not a fundamental truth that a new feature always makes a product better. That is not
fact,
true.
I think it's usually the opposite.
It's usually the opposite, at least beyond some certain thing, right?
Yeah.
Like the Dax said something else was kind of interesting. He said, your product, whatever it is, probably only has one really, really killer feature.
Right.
And if you don't know what that is and get people into that, then you're going to have lots of problems. So everything that you add outside of that is noise, right? I think we're all experiencing that. We're seeing tools even like dev tools. Like there's a tool called Portless, which is kind of it's a way to spin up dev servers without using a lot of ports. The stuff that comes after the .com in the URL. It's very useful. However, it should be very simple, and it's not. It's actually very, very complex. If you pull up the help for the CLI, it's like really long. There's all these options that you now have to understand how to use it. And my guess is that they could shave half or more of those features out and make a better product if they just focused on what was actually useful and not
Right.
every single thing that they could put in there, right? It's like that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So I think I go back to some earlier thoughts we've had, at these theses we've had about this, right? I think that from a programming and coding and software development point of view, it is compressing some of the engineering work, and effectively so. I mean, there's real gains on that front. Like, we can certainly prototype faster. We can take more swings at the bat. We can have more ideas that we can validate and verify. All those things are true. I think can it lead to a better product because of that? Absolutely. I mean, that I can do 3 versions of something and run it through some agent framework and Swarm to do some testing and get some feedback and share it with people. That's all great, right? But it doesn't necessarily speed up the business process and it doesn't compress the business timeline for things to make its way through society or to a human workspace. I think that is the thing that's still very, very hard and still very, very important to get right. Go ahead. Yeah.
Well, I was just going to say, yeah. So I mean, there's a bunch of like businessy things as to why,
Right.
Just being more productive doesn't lead automatically to revenue gains, right? Or better products. Like there's still a huge process that goes into it. That seems very, very clear, and I think people are discovering that more and more. And just because you can ship something doesn't mean you should. So I think there's other things too that have to do with like there's a limit to that process that we talked about, like figuring out what is the right thing to build, and actually like also like I think there's something that's, what am I trying to get to? I'm trying to get to, there's something about the attention that's required to run a project, to run a software project is in some ways going up, because you have to, instead of getting to spend some time sort of doing kind of almost rote tasks that you kind of almost helped you think through the problem by coding by hand, right? You now have to basically front load a lot of that into a detailed spec and a detailed architecture design that you then give to the agents to then go do it faster than you could. The problem is that you still have to do all that attention stuff up front, and that takes time and that takes skill. And so there's actually, in some ways, I've heard people say, I'm actually thinking harder than I've ever had to think before about what I'm doing, because it just takes almost like more intention to drive the agents towards the goal that you want them to, rather than you just noodling around and kind of arriving at the thing almost through a combination of engineering and craft. You know what I mean?
100% agree. I mean, I feel it very viscerally and personally. I mean, I think that there was a time where I felt like I had just unlocked some high bandwidth mental capacity in my head, and I could do so much more because I had several agents running, doing things, and it felt really unstoppable. I can say very unequivocally that was not sustainable. Like, you know,
that's right.
I mean, the other day I was pinging you like, hey, Todd, did we do a podcast on Friday?
That's right.
And, well, last week.
Like, yes, and you were in it. Right?
I was in it, right. And I was literally losing, like, but this was a true thing. Like, I for a moment, like, sort of lost track of the things I was holding in my head. Of what happened, and I really think that I can't do that much anymore. You know, like I don't run multiple agents now these days as much. I 2 or 3 tabs at most if I'm doing something, and it's and the other thing is as complexity increases because you're doing more, I'm finding that it's harder for me to actually keep track of what's happened. You know, so like, thank God for commit logs. Thank God for everything.
Yeah, exactly.
I can't stop and come back and go, what happened here? So I just kind of fast forward, right? So if you apply that, take that to the logical conclusion, right? I think it's practically impossible. Maybe others are much better at this, and I just have, you know, my attention limitations are just mine, and it doesn't apply universally. But if it does, then I think that there are certainly human limits here that prevent this from actually being effective at certain scale.
Yeah, I think there are, but I have a kind of interesting anecdote. I'm going to reach for my ukulele here for a second. That I think is something that we're going to get to in this space at some point. So I've been learning to play the uke, which means I'm learning to play chords, you know. And so this is a very physical thing that I'm doing, right? Like, I have to learn to move my fingers in a certain way, and I'm getting a sound out of it. And, you know, obviously I'm playing music, and I'm trying to learn how to play music. But one of the things that I was at a performance a couple weeks ago, well, maybe a week or so ago, and I've been going to music shows my whole life. Like concerts were a very big part of my life growing up. And I mean, we had a music store when I was a kid. Like, I mean, we had a concert hall when I was a kid. My stepfather was a folk music disc jockey. So music has been a big deal. But I never learned to play anything in terms of actually physically learning to play chords, right?
Sure, yeah.
So I had this really interesting experience where I was watching somebody play, and I was watching their hands move, and I experienced the music in a different way. What I felt was a richer experience. I understood the music better because I understood how I could feel it in my body in a way that I could not.
Yeah.
There was a connection to it. And part of what's happening with agents is we are losing connection to the code because we're not typing it, right? So we are having to work at a higher level abstraction. And there's no question that there are, like we've been saying, there's no question that there are gains. And like, I don't believe we're going back. Like, I don't believe we're going back to an experience where we're typing on keyboard. But I don't think this sort of flat, high level, everything in your brain and in a markdown file is where we end, because there's other ways that humans process information, you know, through hand movements, especially hand movements. Really, really big part of what it is to be a human is to work with your hands. And so the keyboard, we're kind of losing some of that. But I wonder if there's new ways in which we can learn to experience what we're doing in a way that will enrich the experience and improve our attention. This is what I was getting at was, I'm just not sure our attention is designed well for this sort of flat experience that we're having, a bunch of markdown files and a whole wall and walls of text and diffs and on a screen. I don't think that's enough. And that's why we're feeling this kind of attention constraints that you were just describing. Things like that.
I think that could be it, or we are still learning a different how to connect with at a different level of abstraction that we haven't fully figured out yet. Because I'll give you an example. You and Eric love using Whisper and to talk to your agents. I can't do it because I feel disconnected when I don't type. Right. So for me,
I'm the opposite. Typing never worked for me. Yeah. Yeah.
And that was my way of connecting to the craft. Like when I still write freehand most of my blog posts or things like that because I hate the slop that comes out without real prompt and guidance. And I feel like by the time I write the prompt, I've written the whole thing anyway. So I just write the thing. But I get you. I think there is something about craft that connects us deeply to our work that we are that we may need to that we're maybe relearning and trying to find a new way to get reconnected to it.
Right, and I was struck by. I found actually I need to go back and find this again. So there are new code visualizers that people are playing around with. I think because for this very reason, they're looking for a way to reconnect with their code, and one of them that I found was pretty interesting. It'll make a 3-dimensional heat map of your code base. And the people that were doing this said one of the things that they do is they actually print, they 3D print this map of their code base. It looks like a city landscape. And, different heights or different complexities and different modules or different colors, et cetera. And so they actually print it so they can actually experience it 3-dimensionally physically, and they feel that's helpful to them in understanding the code base, which I think is pretty interesting, right? Like this may just be a bunch of copium trying to get at this, but I do think there's something about maybe just attention, and that's actually what Addy Osmani from Google had a blog had an article about this. He called it the orchestration tax, but one of the points that he made in this post was we need to start thinking about not just how context engineering or agentic engineering, but attention engineering, which is the same thing that I'm getting at here. Is we need to start thinking about how we get our attention to be well suited for the job that we're trying to do. And so whether that is like being clear on like when you actually do your best thinking, you should make sure that that's your free time. You should, like if you're a morning person, that's when you should do this. You shouldn't do it when you're tired at the end of the day, things like that. But I wonder if it doesn't go further. I'd wonder if it's not like we actually need some 3-dimensional way of paying attention to our code, or some tactile way of paying attention to our code, which will help us kind of unlock this maybe new levels of being able to understand and interact with a code base.
I think that rings true. I don't know how you do the latter, but I certainly feel like I'm actively trying to reset the way I work. I think I got into a good place before November of last year when the whole thing exploded and I was getting into AI psychosis where I was sleeping earlier, I was waking up earlier, I was actively meditating in the morning, I was getting my tea at the right time, I had a good rhythm, I set myself up to be working in the morning, and all that got blown to smithereens. November came, I wasn't sleeping, I was going crazy, I was like coding through the middle of the night and then waking up early and doing all over again and feeling high about it. But I think that my attention regime, a lack of attention regime, really hurt me after a while. I could feel it. I could feel like this is really not working, and I need a reset. And so I think I've been trying. I think it's actually been better. Like I don't feel so anxious about, like there was a lot of FOMO before. Like like it's not so like it was like if I don't
If
do
you're not
this
running
now,
20 agents overnight, what are you doing?
exactly what am I doing? Like what am I? What's my value on this planet? Why am I not? What am I here? What do I serve? And all that. Anyway, I think long story short, I think that in a weird way, I'm coming back to the idea that if we don't have a good practice around attention, personally, but also across the company and across our teams, this is just not sustainable and it's not going to yield the results of productivity that we think it people are thinking that it does.
No, and I think I'm a pretty serious meditator, and one of the reasons is because attention is really the only thing you have.
It's the only thing you have.
Everything else is transient, right? Yeah. Even attention itself is transient, but at least it's yours. It is the most in demand, or the most scarce resource that as a human you have, is what you pay attention to.
Yeah, I gotta tell you, Todd, I felt like I got to a good place of delegating and creating space for myself and being good about my attention, and not taking on too many things that I can't execute well. And then AI came, and then I made myself like 50 new jobs. Yeah. I'm maintaining Tesseract, I'm maintaining that, I'm doing this. I'm like I see a problem, so I can AI this, and I'll build skill around it. And now I'm maintaining that. So all of a sudden I've doubled and tripled the number of things I'm keeping in my brain and trying to get ahead of. I think that's not good. I think that's the opposite of what we're trying to do. So, it goes back to this thing that people keep saying, like, oh, AI is going to take jobs away. I don't know. I think some jobs are probably at risk. There's obviously going to be disruption.
Yeah.
Right. But if you believe in this thesis that attention is what matters, then you're really constrained by the capacity for human attention. And if you can do more, then you need more humans to pay attention to the things that you want to do more of.
Yeah, I think that's, I'm sort of both positive and negative on that at the same time. Is that I think because I think it is just going to be a big disruption. Yeah. And, there were lots of ways to have careers that, maybe didn't require a lot of attention, and you still were able to, you could still have a house and a family and a car and things like that. And I worry that there's fewer and fewer things that are going to be deemed economically valuable if they can be automated away through whatever it is, AI or robots or whatever. I think we're a ways away from that. But, there, and I do think, what do I mean? So I do think attention is the most valuable thing you have.
Sure.
But that doesn't necessarily translate any given person's attention into economic value. And that's always the real sort of tension in capitalism in particular, right? Like there's being a human and being even like a good human that has a positive impact on your community doesn't always, in fact, you could argue rarely connects to economic value. And that's always been a problem. And I worry that this is going to make it a little bit worse, or maybe a lot worse. So we'll see. But I'm still like sort of like, there's just a lot of problems that need to get solved in this world. And so I'm for there being ways in which to solve problems faster. And I do believe AI is that. I just think we're a long way from it, being able to do all this stuff without humans in the loop. I think it's going to be something we're going to have to drive maybe forever. So I don't know. It's sort of like I really love what I can do with the AI tools. It still feels really, really good. But but now it's also, like it has to equate to something that is going to allow our company to thrive, or I'm not sure what value it actually brings at the end of the day. And I think it will, but I just don't think it's clear, like in every business, that this is, outside of coding. I still think software development is the killer app for AI. I don't think there's a better use case currently in the world than AI coding. So I'm still pretty bullish on that, but I think we do have to get real about what that means in terms of, it's not the code that matters. It's the problem you're solving. It's the attention that you spend on it that is the critical piece. And so we have to get through that part. We have to learn how to do that. And we're still early. We're still really early in that game.
I think we're still really early. I will say that, yes, I think software development and engineering is where the biggest benefits are accruing to with AI currently. But every business runs on software. So, I mean,
that's
you
true.
can see,
Yeah.
If nothing else matters. Yeah.
I would love to get some actual data on that, because I think it's really easy for us to say that, because that's what we do, right? But if I think about like what my wife does, I mean, sure, she runs her business on software, QuickBooks and WordPress, and really not really much need to do beyond that currently, in terms of the software that run. And I think a lot of businesses are that way. So I don't actually know I would just love to know like how many businesses really run on the kind of software that we make, for example. Like, what's that percentage?
Yeah, no, I'm not saying that all companies or most companies run on bespoke software and that is their core differentiator, or the way to think about where their primary competitive advantage comes from. Certainly I think there's a class of those, and those are the companies that we tend to work with.
Yeah.
But I'm saying that even if you take a sort of a standard way of thinking about software as just renting a tool that does a basic business activity or task, manage your accounts, manage your books, or process an invoice, or whatever that is, and it's a fairly routine thing. Like when I go to a restaurant, I'm not reinventing the POS system. Like they're not going to do that. I mean, there's tons of really great POS systems out there. I know people who do that, but tons of really great POS systems out there. And the economies of scale will never probably allow you to custom build something that makes you quote different or differentiated, right?
Restaurants have extremely low margins.
Extremely low margins. So the economics of it already make that an impossible situation.
Yeah.
However, the people making POS, the companies making point of sale systems, are now hopefully iterating faster and getting more wags at problems that they're trying to solve. And I think hopefully the value of that then becomes accrued or translated to the customer, right? So I think it creates competition. It hopefully will get better value out to people faster. And I actually think that the disruptions that we're seeing in the SaaS world, ClickUp, Linear, all these companies, Notion, that, I think they're going through a version of this because the pressure on them is to innovate better, because candidly, they've really had the economy of scale thing working for them to the disadvantage of consumers. And my point is simply that I think whether or not you are building a bespoke business software solution for yourself or just renting one, I do fundamentally think that the agentic engineering revolution will benefit consumers ultimately, because they'll have more choice. They'll have more choice.
I believe that too.
Yeah.
I believe that too.
In either direction, whether buying or building, right? In either direction.
Yeah.
I lost my headphones for a second. They'll have more choice. You want to shift gears a little bit?
Yeah. So, I mean, it may be that we're sounding down on AI at the moment, or this has been a little bit of a downer episode. I want to be clear that that's not what I feel. What I do feel is a sort of coming to grips with these questions that we've been asking. Just because you can you can pound nails 10 times faster. It doesn't mean you have 10 times more ideas of what things to build. Like, you still have to have good ideas. You still have to actually build them and test them and try them and iterate on them and support them and all those things. And none of that gets markedly easier with AI, except, the fact that you can write more code, you can experiment more. That's it. That's it. The rest of it is still the very hard problem.
You still have to deliver a service or a product that has enough value that can justify the cost of that AI effort that you the amount of tokens you just burn. Right.
And so, like, some people who maybe haven't made the leap yet into AI might say, like, well, okay, then I can skip this. I can just keep coding by hand. I just want to put the caution out there that I don't think that's the case. Like, we have a new tool and it is better than the old tool. We just don't know how to use it as well as we will in the future. But I can't imagine going back to doing this the old way. I mean, I really can't. The productivity gains in terms of writing code are significant. And they're so significant that if LLMs disappeared tomorrow, it would be a hard few months as people had to readapt, and we would lose all those gains, and it would be a real problem. So what we're saying here is not sit this one out, to be very clear. If you're in the software development business, if you're in the FileMaker business, you can't sit this one out. But you can have a more realistic understanding of where the gains really are. And so you can build up intuitions around what it will help you do better and what it won't help you do better, and why you're still a necessary part of this equation.
In the FileMaker space specifically, I think my message is more like, we now have a tool that puts us on a level playing field with almost every other thing that is out there, and then some. And this is the critical piece. I think it would be a mistake to not take advantage of that, because that's always been the constraint that we have had to sort of work around or try to compensate for in different ways. But now you can build modern apps. Now you got to do that well. You got to do that thoughtfully. You got to do that with the right amount of attention and all those things. It's got to be engineered well. But it's a different story when you can't.
That's right.
And that's the 0 to 1, I think, breakthrough that we need to understand. Now, again, this doesn't address the larger AI story and the whole agentic space and how it affects businesses and all that. I think there's a lot of stuff that happens there. But man, if we don't get on this path, then you are playing with shorthanded, basically.
Pretty much, yeah. That's pretty much what it comes down to. So that's why the news recently in the FileMaker world. We've been talking about this for quite a bit with ProofKit. It's now available and out, and you can go and download it, and you can experience some of the productivity gains that we're talking about here. And then I think we talked about this on the last podcast, but so Ryan, the CEO of Claris, dropped a blog post 3 or 4 weeks ago now talking about Claris's commitment to building the hooks into FileMaker to allow you to use Claude Code and Cursor and all the coding tools that you might want to use to work with FileMaker. And then I guess this was just yesterday. I've been traveling, so I've kind of lost track of time. But just yesterday.
I do remember this one. I do remember this one.
Our friend of the show, ex-host, Martha Zink, gave a webinar at Claris, which, if you attended, was pretty remarkable in a couple of ways. One is that they started to demo some of what's coming, and they talked about the fact that they're working with us to help them speed up the process of, baking in some of the ideas that we've had from a third-party perspective into a first-party perspective that they would do instead of us. And then I think the other thing that just is worth saying as we jump into this is this was an extremely well-attended webinar. Like, I think normally the FileMaker webinars are, 400 to 500 people show up for these. This one had over 1,000, and they did a poll, and the poll was, basically 86% were excited or already doing these kinds of things, excited about doing these things or already doing these kinds of things within the Claris marketplace. So just to say, the webinar was very successful, both in terms of the number of people that showed up and their sort of positive reaction to what was shown. So let's start with that. Like, that's a big deal. Yeah.
It's a big deal. It's a big deal. I mean, I don't think I had many doubts that would be the case, but you never know with these things, like we're drinking, we're AI pilled, we're drinking the Kool-Aid, and I remember when we had all these great ideas about proof chat, we thought it would be the best thing ever. It's like,
yeah, it turns out proof chat, by the way, is basically a non-mover. People don't use it. And I think we know why that is, but, and we can talk about that maybe a little bit, but yeah, so we're always, we had the idea for ProofKit and sort of agentic coding. We really saw that after December. We were like, oh, regular FileMaker people are now going to be able to code web viewer apps, which our web team has been doing for a long, long time.
Right.
But so we had this idea in December, and we got very excited about it. But like you say, we get excited. We got excited about Proof Chat too, and turned out to be a big, basically people use it, but it's not the hit that we were hoping it would be. So seeing this webinar with so much excitement was definitely good affirmation for us.
Yeah. So what else to say about that? I think as a reminder that Claris is working hard to bring ProofKit-like functionality into the product as a first-party experience, and we're very excited about that. I think that, I sometimes get questions like, well, does this compete with Claris, and how do you guys see that? Just unequivocally, I'm going to write a little blog post about this, but we don't see this as competing with Claris or vice versa. I mean, we're actually encouraging them to take as much as from ProofKit as possible, and either re-expressing or implementing or integrating into the product, right? Because I think fundamentally these things have to be a first-party experience. Otherwise, we have to work around some of the rough edges in the product to get this working. And it's great. We are doing it now, and it's very, very useful and very powerful. We're not stopping with ProofKit, but yeah, a lot of the stuff that we're doing should be baked into the product. And certainly we have theories and opinions about what that needs to do. But I think this is exactly the right move for the whole community of Claris and FileMaker. And the way I think about it is, and maybe Todd, you have some thoughts here, is like, ProofKit will evolve, and we'll continue to have our own opinions about what we extend, what we do differently from what is stock. But it's like, we want the stock car to be pretty good, and then if we want to add a spoiler to it and add new rims, then we'll do that. But it's got to be a really great car out of the lot before you do much to it.
Right, like, to maybe take that analogy a few steps far.
It's dangerous.
Like, in order to get the ProofKit car to move, we had to build a steering system.
Right.
But even though maybe our goal was only to, make it go really fast and have a nice spoiler and to, whatever speed demons really like. But the first thing we had to do is we had to actually have it steerable, basically. And so we had to put the steering. We had to put the
re-engineer the steering system, right?
Yeah, where that should just be part of the car, right? The car should provide that. Steering should be part of the car, not the aftermarket stuff. Like you wouldn't, you might get an aftermarket steering wheel, but you want your car frame, like the thing that rides on, to be able to steer. Like you don't want
it to be steerable to begin with.
Yeah, exactly. It should be steerable. And so we had to put in steering before we could do the rest of the stuff we wanted to do. And brakes, we had to put in brakes, like that should the car should just have that.
That's a great analogy, because that's just exactly it. Like brakes, the fundamental systems that allow a car to do what cars do, that just need to be part of the carness of car, right?
Yeah, exactly.
We want a new radio that has Apple Play and not Android CarPlay or whatever. That we can do. That's aftermarket and what we want to add to it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's third party. That's
third party.
That's where aftermarket makes a lot of sense, or third party ecosystems make a lot of sense. But there's stuff that belongs in the core, and we've done this before. Like this is something that we've done
over and
the
over
years
again.
with Claris, where we've sort of been ahead. Like when we did Auto FMS first version, there was no admin API for the server, so we had to build our own. And as soon as Claris provided that, we stopped providing our own. Why? Like that's just now we can go farther, and we'll do the same thing here.
Transactions, the same thing.
Yeah, we'll do exactly. We did transactions forever. Now we do it the way Claris does it because that's better. And I think there's something where it's, especially at this time, where like we've noticed this because again, people can build anything that people are building. Rather, like it's very clear that for most, I don't know, most, a significant number of the developer shops out there will maybe take a look at ProofKit and then they will build their own because they want to build their own. And that's fine. Like we think people should do whatever they want. But if the market is going to be changed by something like ProofKit, it has to come from the vendor, right? Otherwise, everybody's in their own silos. This has always been part of the problem in the Claris market to some degree, is that people just want to build their own things. They don't really want to adopt something from another third party unless they have to. That's always been something that's been kind of a challenge. And so if agentic coding is going to be a thing that helps the entire market, that has to come from Claris. Otherwise, everybody will have their own piece. There'll be no network effects. There'll be no ecosystem that springs up around it. It's critical that this stuff gets baked in.
It's critical.
So we're super thrilled that they're doing it, right? Like that's
super
exactly what we hoped would happen.
Yep.
And so, yeah, it's an awesome win. We're super excited for what they're doing, and we're super excited to keep pushing on the other side of whatever it is they give us to build on. We will continue to push on that and see what's next around the corner for, the next round of this cycle.
Yeah, and ProofKit will be, I think there's no reason ProofKit will not be compatible with anything Claris does, because it's really the thing that we'll just build on it. Yeah.
We'll use whatever they provide as the the brakes, right? Like the steering wheel. Exactly. We will not force you to rip out the steering wheel that comes with Claris and use ours. Like that would be dumb, right? Like we just want to keep building and pushing what's possible ahead of that curve.
But until Claris does drop their official AI kit, dev kit, or whatever they call it, ProofKit is, I think, the best way for you to get some experience on how to do agentic development, especially on the application front end side of things in FileMaker. So I think you should definitely take a look at ProofKit, go download it. And if you switch to Claris's version later, things will hopefully just work, and it wouldn't be.
Yeah, I mean, we'll be able to come up with, we'll be able to, whatever we do in the future, it's sort of like, this may not be clear if you're not deep into this world, but it is absolutely going to be compatible with whatever Claris does, maybe right out of the box. But if not, what there will be is essentially a prompt somewhere that says, we built this with ProofKit, and now ProofKit's got a new version that uses the Claris pieces. Here's a document about how you migrate the code from the old way to the new way. And guess what? This is something the agents are really, really good at. Migrations AI is super good at it. So it's going to be able to do it. Right. Like these kinds of tasks are what AI excels at, pretty wild. Like as just a sort of another example of how good they are at it, Bun, which is another JavaScript runtime, was written in a language called Zig, and they were having some problems with the language, the lower level language they were using. They needed better type safety and memory primitives, and so they switched to Rust. And AI rewrote in 6 days. They ported a very complex JavaScript runtime from being built in Zig to being built in Rust, because AI is very good at these kinds of things. So whatever the final shape of what Claris's version of this is going to be, you'll be able to reshape it. Whatever you're building with ProofKit will be extendable, or will be able to be migrated to that version.
Yep. Yeah. So if you want to get an early look, and even maybe get a sense of what we are doing internally with our teams, and just kind of figure out, what is Proof doing? How do they build? How do they work with clients? ProofKit is probably the best thing you can do. Download it. You are seeing, front row seats to how Proof develops and how we ship to the world. So
Yep. It's got a lot of the stuff we do baked in, and I think it's just again, we say this, but I want to keep iterating on it. Like, it's just the beginning. Like, I think people will experience a lot of success if they go through the guides that we have and how to get started. But I want to be clear. There's things to learn here, and we're going to do the best that we can to produce materials on how to do that. Things like this podcast, but we're also going to do. We'll do more videos, more demos, office hours types things where we can get more into the weeds on how ProofKit actually works, and how you can prompt different things. Like, I want to make a data table with like sortable columns. How do I do that? Well, we'll have documentation on how to do that,
right.
or prompts and hints about how to do that kind of stuff. So so it's the beginning. This is the beginning of a new journey. But luckily, the other thing AI is really good at is teaching. Actually, can really help you learn how to do this stuff. So I just encourage everybody to at least give it a try. Download it, start a new file. I'd start in the greenfield first, just so you can just feel very
and give us feedback
a lot.
Yeah,
and just like not care too much about what you're doing. Just have fun. Make some little project you've always wanted to do, but never had the time. Try that or something like that, just to get started. I think that's the easiest and freest way to go.
Yeah, and give us feedback. This is really a developer enablement, quote unquote, motion for us. We're using this to make our tooling and our teams better, and we want you to succeed, and we want you to come along with us on this ride. And any feedback that you have on this will also help us and everybody else who's getting on board this train. So love to hear it.
And people ask us sometimes, why do you guys give away so much for free? Like, we literally get that question. People, I can't believe you did auto FMS for free. I can't believe ProofKit's free. Somebody's like, one of the people is like, how do I make sure this doesn't go anywhere? Like, they want to pay for it. They want to give us something to keep doing this work. And so it's maybe not always clear why we do this. I think there's many reasons, but number one is, I think I have personal reasons why the FileMaker community is important to me. It's been almost the entirety of my professional career, except for the first 5 or 6 years out of college, has been in FileMaker, and I know a lot of people here, a lot of friends met over the years here. It's very important to me on a personal level, but on a business level, all of our customers are FileMaker people. Like, we have a vested interest in this platform being as powerful as it possibly can be. Like, that's more important than us charging for these products. It's way more important that this platform be powerful. It just serves us better economically from a business perspective. It's quite clear that that's true. So that's why we do it.
Amen. So yeah, what's next here?
Or anything? I don't know. I just finished the Mars trilogy. That's my, people they do the sick picks on the Syntax podcast.
Yeah, the 3 books that you must read. That sort of thing.
The 3 books you must read are Red Mars, Green Mars, and
Green
Blue
Mars
Mars.
and Blue Mars.
Read it. I don't know. I've loved it the second time even more than the first time. And I had it. I was listening to an audio on Audible, and I turned the speed down to 0.9x. So it was actually, usually I'm like a 2x, on an audiobook, but I loved it so much that I slowed it down. I literally spent this entire year so far, almost 5 months in. I've been listening to that series, and it's finally over, and I'm a little sad, but well worth it. And they talk to AIs a lot in that series. AI is just like a thing everybody has, and so
yeah,
it's nice.
That would be my dream, right? Where AI just melts into the background, and it's just like a tool that you use to do real work. To connect
you
with
want to
people.
build a new town, you just talk to the AIs, and they fire up the robots, and and they start making a new town on the side of a cliff in a crater in Mars.
Right.
That's I went a long way from there, but I like to dream,
I think this is a good place to probably end things for now.
Yep.
I think
Sounds
we'll
good.
have more things to talk about next time, maybe around agents.
Yeah, maybe we'll do. Maybe we'll get technical on too, like
Yeah.
what some of these ProofKit things are. Now that there's actually hundreds of people using ProofKit, maybe we'll do get into some of the technical,
Right.
like how to prompt certain things, what to expect, kind of stuff, things like that.
Yeah. So subscribe. I don't know what the button is. Subscribe.
Smash that button.
Smash
Tell your
that
friends.
button. Tell your friends.
Tell
Check
all
out
your
the show
friends.
notes. We do have a
Context
playlist.
podcast.
Right.
Yeah, do all that stuff. Tell everybody, and let us know. Let us know what you'd like to hear from us. We'll talk about whatever we like. We could do a whole podcast on the Mars series. We could do a whole episode. We could do many episodes of the Mars series. I'm not sure that would resonate with everybody. So let us know what questions you have, like what things you'd like to hear us discuss, respond to, things like that. Would love to get that kind of stuff. So
Cheers.
thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.